Cuckolding. It's something that is whispered about, but it's a topic that is almost never talked about. It's a kink for some couples, and it's a risk and something that most men do not want. And it's a psychological framework that all women have. And I mean every single one. All women, including your girlfriend or wife, psychologically cucks men. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow and can be very confusing. So I'll explain that later in the video and you'll see what I mean. Cuckolding is a dynamic where a man consents to, or is coerced into, or is the victim of and does not consent to having his woman be intimate with another man. On a psychological level, cucking is when a woman sees one man as being more sexually valuable in comparison to another. The whole idea makes most men cringe. And though some would call it a kink and a lifestyle, but beneath the surface, especially considering that all women cuck men, at least in their mind, there's a question that we need to ask, which is how does this affect a man's self-worth? Spoiler alert, it's not good. Let's unpack why and what you need to do about it. First, for historical reference, cuckolding comes from the cuckoo bird, which lays eggs in other birds' nests, right? In human terms, historically, it's when a man's wife slept with another guy, usually without his knowledge, but sometimes with him present and aware, and that guy impregnates her. Today in 2025, it's framed as consensual in some circles, and it's a fetish that's about power and humiliation and voyeurism, and it's sold to men as something that would be good for the woman and liberating for him too. But even if a guy buys into that nonsense and he consents to it, that doesn't erase the consequences. And it's not new, right? History is full of stories going back to Shakespeare and Othello and even long before that. It's a part of our evolution, according to scientists. And today is amplified by the internet with communities pushing it as liberating and pushing for men to accept and commit themselves to women who've had a ton of guys and sexual experiences and who don't see the men that they're in relationships with as their sexual best. But for men, it's not liberating. It's more of a slow unraveling of a man's identity. The simple thing that you and every other guy wants is the ability to pinpoint that woman of your desires and then get her to fall for you, right? Well, this seduction superpower is exactly what Sexpionage 2.0 will give you. This is the power that no other course is teaching you. The name Sexpionage comes from the spy world, and these same skills that these men used on missions are the same ones that you need. And in the new material for Sexpionage 2.0, you'll have even more material to work with and coaching sessions with me to teach you these proven skills. I'm opening Sexpionage 2.0 for enrollment very soon, like within a few days. So don't waste time. Click the link and join my community for free so you won't miss when I open enrollment. This will be the only chance that you'll have this year. And what do I mean by cucking as a psychological framework that all women have? This can be hard to follow, so bear with me while I explain. All right. Women are all hypergamous. This means that they seek out the man that they are the most attracted to for sex. All right. And part of what makes him attractive to her is that her mammalian brain perceives the guy she wants to sleep with as the best genetic match for a baby. So women have maximum desire sexually for the man that she sees as the best genetic match that she is able to have sex with and have a baby with potentially, right? So you have all that so far, right? Good. Okay. So what that means is that because women are hypergamous, literally every man she has slept with and could sleep with is ranked in terms of desire as best to not the best. There is in her mind a number one guy, and a man who she has the most sexual desire for or has had the highest sexual experiences with. And then there's everybody else. So because women are hypergamous, no two men are equal in her mind sexually. So she can't have two number one guys. One man will always be her sexual best, whether it's the man that she's with or a man in her past who's long gone. So now, if that makes sense, what I just said, then that means it has to be true that every man is cucked in her mind, except for the one man that she sees as having been or is her sexual best. She thinks that the top guy is the most valuable sexually and the most desirable. And every other man in her eyes is somewhere below that and even degraded sexually in her mind. This only makes sense. If hypergamy is true, which it is, then that means that she cucks every man except for her number one guy. Period. End of story. If there is a man who is her best, then that means she has to think that the other men are sexually less powerful and sexually weaker than who she picks as her best. So what that means is your wife or girlfriend thinks that you are the best sexual partner she has ever had or would ever have, or you are being cucked in your wife's mind, and she dreams of other men who are sexually more powerful than you. And part of that, what arouses her and makes her get off is degrading you and knowing that you don't have sexual power over her. Women are either getting off on the power you have over them, or they are getting off degrading you and the power that they have over you. This is the cruel nature of women and their mammalian brains, and the cruel part of her sexual nature. Now, some guys will take these facts and they will deny and get angry with me because, unfortunately, most women didn't marry their sexual best. They degrade their husbands rather regularly. Why else do you think they act that way? It's because they'd rather sleep with someone else.
The number one reason your woman is pissed the fuck off, because you ain't her first choice.
They kind of wish they were with someone else. And that is the hard pill for most men to swallow. Now, some guys will turn it into a fetish and make their anxiety and degradation and humiliation into a kink, which is the way the gynocentric world wants you to go. And they want you to accept your fate as a weak man subservient to a strong woman, right? And some guys will just become apathetic. And that's usually the response is guys will become apathetic and they'll ignore the fact that their wife would rather get off on someone else, really. And they go through life just trying to ignore it. These are the men who escape into their hobbies and their little weekend chores, and they escape into their work, and they escape into their sports teams, and they become apathetic in their relationships, just like in their lives, and they stop trying to court or have meaningful sex lives with their wives. It is only the men with courage who can face what I'm saying, accept what I'm saying, and then take action and use what I'm saying to enjoy peak relationships with women and having good relationships in their lives. Now, let's see which man you will be by the end of this video. So now that you have a full understanding of how it works, let's ask ourselves this question. Why does this hit a man's self-worth so hard? Well, it starts with psychology. Most men tie their value to strength, competence, and yes, being desired by their woman or by women in general. And in fact, being desired by a woman who wants to have our babies is the strongest primal drive that you have. And according to evolution, your drive to mate and to have a woman care for your baby, all right, is stronger than your drive to survive. And a woman might not have cared for your offspring back then, back in tribal times, if you weren't the man that she desired the most. That's a reality. So the need to be a woman's sexual best is deep in the psychology of every single man. And it's as basic as survival. So this isn't just cultural. It's wired into us as men. Now, cuckolding flips that on its head. It says that you are the weak beta male who is worthless and who deserves to be a prisoner to a woman you can't satisfy. It says that your genetics and your sperm is poison to future generations. Cuckolding says that you're not the protector, you're not the provider, you're not the lover, and you're not even the one she's just choosing at the moment. You are a spectator to her want of another man to take care of her sexual needs, and you are a slave to her goals and wants. Now, there are books written and people out there promoting that you, as a man, should agree to be a woman's cuck. And there are all sorts of ways they subtly promote it, even if they're not overt. Even in conservative circles like churches, and even in places like the red pill or masculinity circles. Do you know that there are books out there that claim to be red pilled and offering a better life for men? And they give instructions on how to be a cuck. That's right. They give instructions on how somehow you're supposed to handle your jealousy while a woman degrades you and sleeps with other men. And here's the thing, even if you agree to it, your brain isn't going to play along. Studies like those from the Journal of Sexual Medicine show humiliation-based kinks can actually trigger a dopamine in the short term, which is why men sometimes explore things like poly relationships and swinging, but that over time they clash with the deeper needs for respect and a strong need to be the sexual best for the woman that you have bonded to. So even in consensual cucking, it's a high that leaves you with an incredible feeling of humiliation and angst. And when guys get attracted to or sexually aroused by their own abuse, this is nothing short of demonic and debilitating for a man. You can be dominant and secure and confident as a man, knowing that you are sexually committed to a woman who doesn't see you as her sexual best. And this explains why most married men are shells of themselves and very weak. Self-worth is confidence. It's knowing you're enough. Cuckolding, by design, undermines that. Even if it is just happening in your woman's head, if your woman seeks someone else, often framed as better in terms of strengths or looks or prowess, how do you not internalize that? In consensual kinks, the man is told, well, this is just fun, but his mind will always whisper, I'm not good enough. And committing to a woman who doesn't see you as her sexual best might be something that you could try to ignore or try to not think about and rationalize away. But your mind will always whisper that you are worthless and you're not good enough. You want to know the reason I warn guys against getting into anything consensual where your woman sleeps with someone else? Because I know I've coached hundreds and thousands of men really at this point, and I've read the accounts from research as well as talked to these men in sessions. And they're all saying the same thing. They started off confident, curious. They didn't want to worry about that kind of stuff. They didn't want to think about their jealousy, but it always ends hollow. One guy said when he went forward with a woman who had cheated on him with an ex and basically cucked him for a man in her past who she at the time felt was more sexually powerful, he had said, I thought I could handle it, and now I can't look at her the same way or myself. Now imagine making that into a kink. That's not empowerment. That's erosion. What modern psychology misses is that relationships are a power dynamic, and men want to be a dominant force in that dynamic, and women want to be with a man who they can follow. This is what causes true balance and polarity based in mutual respect and burning desire. Cuckolding tilts that scale. She gets adventure, validation, and variety, and she gets all the power. And he gets what exactly? A front row seat to his own inadequacy? Even in consensual setups, the dynamic screams, your role is to watch and not act. You are an inadequate slave who deserves abuse, and should be grateful for the crumbs of affection and care that you get from your female master. Now, does that sound like a good and healthy message? And consent. Consent's tricky here because is it really? I mean, is it really when a weaker man allows himself to be convinced to tolerate some woman's behavior or try this thing out as a kink? Some men say yes to this to please her, but most will do it because of fear of losing her, and most are ashamed of their own inadequacies. Well, that's not a choice, in my opinion. That's coercion dressed up as a kink. And over time, he's not her man at all. He's just a prop and a resource slave. So, how do you rebuild self worth when you feel like a supporting actor in your own sex life and you feel like a slave whose only purpose is to appeal to your woman's demands? Cuck psychology is prevalent in our daily lives and it is in your relationship right now. You are either the cuck or you are the bull, and every other man that has been a sexual option for her is the one being cucked. There is no in between. Yet, why is it that I seem to be the only one talking about this? Well, I'll tell you why. Society is brutal, all right? And we men are judged on masculinity, potency, and control. So most men don't want to face the facts that they've been cucked before and are likely the cuck now in their current relationships. Cuckolding's a punchline online, right? Cuck is like an insult for a reason. If you are cucked and it leaks out, then the humiliation then doubles. Friends, coworkers, even strangers, they suddenly know that you're that guy whose woman would rather bang somebody else. This means that you are unfuckable by other women's standards and you're not going to be respected at all by the standards of other men. And you're going to be treated that way and treated accordingly, whether people are consciously aware of it or not. So one man shared his story with me. His wife bragged about a guy that she had been banging to a friend's, right? And he had allowed this to happen, okay, and stayed with her for whatever reason. And he did that for some time. And she degraded her husband as being sexually less of a man than the guy that she had a fling with. Word spread, and he said, I couldn't face anybody. I felt like less of a man. Of course he said that, right? Public shame piles on to private doubt, and self-worth takes a nosedive. He had to do a lot of work on his inner game just so he wouldn't take his own life. And with me and in coaching, we had some serious rebuilding to do. Now, for those who try it as a short-term kink, maybe it's a thrill for them at first, but long-term, it's a wrecking ball to your sense of self. When she sleeps with someone else because she thought he might be more powerful than you sexually, she will never see you with the same desire, love, or respect that you would need in order to make it work long-term. Trust erodes and resentment will just fester. You will always wonder if she still seeks other men while you are left questioning your value every single day that you're with her. Studies on non-monogamy, like from the archives of sexual behavior, show jealousy and insecurity spike when boundaries blur. Cuckolding is not just an act, it's a mindset. Remember that. I coach guys who get out of these relationships where they dedicated their lives to someone for a time who didn't see him as the top choice. And after the breakup, he's not just healing from the split, he is rebuilding his entire sense of self. Am I enough? That question becomes the haunting echo, and it takes some serious work on inner game to repair that man's sense of self. I've seen this suffering all too often, and that's why I do videos on this and I talk about it. That's why I have a free community for you to join. All right. Even if you never pay for a coaching program. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get the comments. Like many guys will say, I'm just trying to stimulate your anxiety for the views, and that what I'm saying isn't really true. But most guys just can't accept the darker aspects of female psychology. Look, we all have dark aspects to our psychology, men and women alike. It's in our DNA. But men who are weaker and who feel powerless have a harder time accepting the darker aspects of female nature. I will get an occasional comment as well where someone will argue that this is empowering. It's my choice. It's my kink, that sort of thing. Fair enough. You're all adults and you can consent to whatever you want. But here's the rub: empowerment shouldn't leave you broken. If it's truly mutual and you're truly empowered, then why do so many men report otherwise? Why are men reporting regret? All of these weird online forums, they're filled with stories of I tried it and I hate myself. The data backs this up. Research from Kinsey Institute surveys, as well as other research alike, shows non-monogamous setups work best with ironclad communication and equality, or what they would claim as equality. But in cuckolding's asymmetry lacks both, right? Doesn't have ironclad communication usually, and it definitely doesn't have equality. Not that equality is the measure, but it doesn't have it. It's less liberation and more about liability when it's supposed to be this consensual thing. And when is it not consensual, right? When she is settled with you and making you think that you're the one, all with her knowing deep down inside that she sees an ex or a one night stand or somebody else as a higher sexual experience than anything she's ever done with you. That's not just a liability. That's a purely evil thing to do. And it's a common story. And unfortunately, it's a common story of most long-term relationships. Cuckolding is a slow poison to your self-worth, whether it's a kink or whether it's your woman looking at you and just thinking, oh, I could do better. All right. Now, this video is not about judging anybody's bedroom. It's about what happens to your mind and what happens to your soul and your sense of self when it's all said and done. Guys, if you are giving your commitment to a woman and making her a part of your life, then you deserve to feel strong, respected, and valued, not on the bench in your own sex life, and not a slave to an unappreciative master. So yeah, cuckolding is real and a fact you need to face. But what can you do about it? You need to work on your inner game and your relationship skills so you break free from this. You need to heal from the trauma of having women in your history see you as less of a man. And you need to do what it takes to never finding yourself in a place where you are invested in a woman who doesn't see you as her best choice. Now, if this hits home, you need to be around men who are strong, who are building life on their own terms. Join my community of men for free. The link's in the description of the video. And remember, you are worth more than an extra in someone else's play where she sees herself as the main character. Thanks for watching. Drop a comment if you got any thoughts or insights, and subscribe for more real talk.